ask you a really interesting question around empathy, because I think what a lot of people are concerned about is, what if I have someone working from home and they go, oh, I've got this or that problem, and we go, oh, deal with family first. We want to support you. I think some people feel that they might be taken advantage of. Um,
I
tell
actually
us
read something. I read something the other day that said, and I'll get it wrong, but it was something like the quickest way to demotivate a high-performing employee is to keep a weak employee, essentially. So it's like,
yes.
you don't have the hard conversations, essentially. So my kind of solution around that, or my idea, is not a solution, I don't think. We are always going to have people who don't love being back in an office or client environment. That's just always going to happen. You're not going to create one solution that suits everybody. It just isn't going to happen. For me, it's about creating that kind of sense of FOMO in a way, because I think, we were effective in the pandemic working remotely. Absolutely. Everybody was effective. But remember then, everybody was remote. So that's different now. So now you've got some people who are in the office, some people who are not, and those people who kind of going, no, but I want to be here, I want to be there. That's your choice. But then understand that you're going to be the ones missing out. You're going to be the ones missing out on that social capital that we discussed earlier. I think the ability to be, I had lunch last week with two of my colleagues. Coincidentally, we were just kind of all in the canteen at the same time. And we managed to cover off sort of 2 or 3 big issues that we were working on together and would have needed a meeting, and just like over lunch, quickly resolved. You were just like, oh my goodness, that was so effective. And so I think, with employees, there's kind of 2 ways of looking at it, I guess, from an employee and an employer. And I think from an employee perspective, it's really about figuring out what works for you. Because if you want to be that person that works from home forever and not engage and focus on family and focus on all those things, like, that's okay. There's roles for people like that. But then I think of the New York analogy, which I'm sure you would have read about, where they said, well, if you want to earn a New York salary, you've got to work in New York. And you can't earn a New York salary working in Sixville, sort of thing. So I think that's the challenge, is you've got to understand that, yes, you're at home, you've got the flexibility, but that's going to come with a price. So maybe you won't get the promotion opportunities or the travel opportunities or the other opportunities that people who are curious, stepping forward, engaged, are. And so that's why you've got to be okay with that. And I think as employees, you've got to figure out what works for you. As I say, for me, I don't know if I had little kids at home and I was homeschooling, and I think your world is different, and I think maybe you say, okay, well, I'm actually happy with this for a couple of years. Happy not to get the promotion opportunity. I'm happy not to get the challenge, those kind of things. And I think for employers, it is about, creating that FOMO. It's about like really making sure that the fun things, we're talking about something here called like rituals at work. Like, what are the rituals that are core to us as a business? We had a town hall here this morning, an in-person meeting. My goodness, it was like Festive City, and because the youngsters, that apprenticeship model, they love being in person. They love being together. It's the highlight of what they do. So I think for employers, it's about creating those opportunities that some people will subscribe to and some won't. And that's okay.
That's okay. And I think that's the other thing that we've really started listening more to is flexibility is one thing, but there are just employees and employers who don't want to go to the office. They're introverted. They do better work when they're sitting, thinking, focusing, and heaven forbid they should share an office with me. Because I always thought that's why flexibility was granted at VentureWeb, was just to get me out of the office so that I wouldn't interrupt people who were actually working.
We've actually been laughing about people's inside voices and outside voices. And
Yes.
again, there's behaviors. There's behaviors. Like, I have come into a little room, which is, we talk about, so we have this kind of space thing where you book the space you need based on the work you're doing. And so either you have kind of we space or me space, and collaborative space, productive space. And so if you're in a we collaborative, you can be noisy. But if you're not, then you are interrupting other people, and so behaviors then come to the fore. But I think you're right. It's not a one solution fits all. But I don't think employee-employer relations have been one size fits all for a long time.
You know, Nix, I'd like to actually mention that I don't think that that is quite the case. Because I think because we're in services, I think because when you're in professional services, you're often at the client, you're not with your boss the whole time. I think for us, this whole transition has been so much easier because you're used to not having to sit with your boss checking over your shoulder. But I think there's still a lot of it in, I don't want to say not professional services, but for example, in manufacturing, you've got to be on the floor, you've got to be working, you've got to be creating the widgets. I think there's still a gap there. And I think there's so many important things that we could learn as people who have to be on the floor, have to be at the office every day from the changes that came from COVID. So I might not have that flexibility. But for example, outcomes-based management still makes more sense than checking someone over the shoulder. And I actually recently had a client who would put donuts at the front door of the office. And if you were at the office between 8 and 8:15, you could get a donut on your way in. And 8:15, the donuts were taken away. So if you were 15 minutes late, then you weren't donut worthy. And
I mean, that makes me laugh. We do lots of those, like not those kind of things. We don't do an
yes.
8 to 8:15, but donuts are a big thing here. We do lots of donut and coffee days. So yeah, but it's very much more inclusive, should I say, than exclusive. I think that's the thing. It's about creating inclusive opportunities for everyone.
So Nikki, the questions, yes, we've jumped through all of them, all over the show. So I actually cannot keep up with what we've covered. What I want to ask you though is, and you spoke about the Great Resignation earlier, what do you think COVID has done to the way we perceive success? And how does that gel with what business needs to see as success?
I think so. If you think, do we define success differently post-COVID? I would say some people do, some people don't. I think, some people always focus on outputs and not presenteeism, and others will still focus on presenteeism going forward. We won't get that right for everybody. But I think, if you're looking at it from an employer and an employee perspective, I think as an employee, I think success is defined much more in purpose. I don't think success is delivered in just terms of like your workday. Am I working in an environment which provides me with the full experience? Does my employer care about my well-being? What flexibility have they provided? I look at some of the things that certainly this organization has introduced. A me time. So 4 hours every quarter of me time. You choose how you want to use it. If you want to go, whatever you want to do. If you need mental health time, if you need, whatever it is, that's your time to spend. We have, well-being Wednesdays, mindful Mondays, just the things that the organization has introduced in terms of supporting people, home office setup. The sky's the limit, so I think in terms of that piece. So I think organizations that have understood that and have really, I would say, put their employee at the center of their solution will be employers who will have thrived. I think that's the reality. And they will find engaged employees who are committed to longevity with that firm, and then as a result of the success, to go back in a long roundabout way. As an employer, I think we're still learning how to define success in a post-COVID work environment. I think the change management piece is significant. I come from a meeting with our change manager here. We have had, multiple work streams focused on this from day one. So how we prioritize health, how we deliver exceptional client service, how we look at the impact in the community. Organizations like this, you've got to work in the community as well. So success is not one-dimensional. Success for us is not about, their balance sheet or whatever those things. It's very much about the full package. You as a purpose-led organization, really, with people, with clients, with community. And I think the key thing with employers is, as I said at the beginning, agile. So it's pivoting, it's evolving, it is learning, unlearning, relearning constantly. And that's how we're going to be successful.
And so that's the way to recovery, you say?
Oh, I don't know. I think this is I feel like we evolve frequently.
Mm,
And I feel like recovery is about making this kind of remote, flexible thing work for everybody. And remember,
mm,
it's not just about your employees. We imagine if everybody turned around and said, we've got 6,000 people here. Everyone said, thanks, but I'm going to stay at home. You're like, that's not practical. We've got clients, so it is about that balance, even in my own team. If I had people who chose to say, well, I'm not coming in, okay, well, that's your prerogative, but like, I think it's all about give and take and really finding that optimal solution that works for everyone. Um, and I think it is about learning, unlearning, relearning, pivoting, agile, all those cliched words, I'm afraid, but that's exactly what it is. No one has all the answers, and you don't have all the answers at all the time. So
mm.
it's taking little bits of things that you've experienced, little bits of things that you've seen, and pulling that all together in kind of the optimal solution.
I hear you. I think, though, there is one place where you probably have a little bit of an edge on most people. And I'd like to test this thinking with you in that the shift I have seen is when we were working so remotely before COVID, with so many people working remotely, the way that a contractor will sort of like approach a job or a process or whatever is much more independent and much more free thinking and much more outcomes based. And I think that employees have started moving to that same kind of logic where it's about what I put out. Don't you think that there already we had a bit of a learning?
So yeah, you're right. And I think two things on that I've kind of read recently, and I can't think of the word, but there was something about yeah, I think as a contractor, because you are essentially hours based, outcome based, you paid for your time. It is slightly more focused, as you write, and output focused in that. Whereas, perhaps employees as a result, you have a little bit more time for coffee and a little bit more time for this and a little bit more time for that. Absolutely. And I think people are seeing the value, and not even maybe in like an employee focusing more. It's more around, again, that kind of whole individual.
Yes.
Nobody wants to sit at their computer for 16 hours a day.
Mm.
Find me a person who wants to do that. Okay, I don't believe they exist. So it's about people saying, okay, well, if I get this done, then I can do the
Mm.
walk, cook the dinner, go and see mama, whatever
Mm.
it is. I can go and fetch my child. I can be more present in other places of my life. And I think it's
Yes.
that realization of, you know, um, there's just more to life. Let's make the best of each area of our life. I think that's what people have really learned. And I think, haven't we learned that just to celebrate the small stuff? My goodness, when we couldn't do anything and we couldn't go anywhere and we couldn't celebrate anything. My youngest son had his honors graduation last week at GCT in person. We were beyond excited because of the 4 degrees that our children had earned. That was the only one that was in person. We clashed with all the online graduations. And so there we were in the pouring rain, as they would only be in Cape Town. But just the opportunity to just celebrate those things. Now that
Mm.
translates into the work environment as well. We've done birthday, we were a small team, so we've done happy birthday wishes remotely for 2 years, very successfully, with terrible singing videos and funny backgrounds. But this week we got to have donuts and coffee in the canteen. What a treat, just to celebrate those small things, sit around the table together, wish the birthday girl happy birthday, eat the donuts, drink the coffee, shoot the breeze. So important.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And I love that you bring up also celebrating the small successes, because it's so easy when we all work remotely to feel like I'm not seen, I'm not valued, because it's not the deal yet. It's not closed, it's not final. So yeah, that is so important.
Oh, and I think there's something so irrelevant in that, because I also, so you say I'm not seen and I'm not heard and everything else online.
Mm,
But I don't know if you found, so we had a mandated very early on from our senior leadership, camera on. So whatever
mm,
call you were on, whatever meeting you were on, camera on. Some people embraced that wholeheartedly, others didn't. And I
mm,
feel like that was the wrong call as an employee. I feel like when you're on a call in this kind of black vacuum, if someone like me presenting to this black, it is so disheartening. It is so demotivating. And so I
Yeah.
think, I'm not heard, I'm not seen. You've also got to take responsibility for that as an employee. This
Yeah.
is not all about the employee. Here we say that you're responsible for your career, it's in your hands. And there, I'm afraid I will not, people have a role to play in this. This is not all about the employer. This is give and take. And
Yeah.
people need to step forward and kind of own that stuff.
So I agree with you. I always say to people, would you sit and do this in a meeting?
We've
You
got
wouldn't.
lots of those. We've got lots of those examples as well, because it's like when you're in a meeting and someone's pinging you, and you sort of like, well, that's like popping into a meeting room going, "Hi, are you busy? Can I interrupt you?" It's like that kind of, we almost wanted to do like a fun video series of that, just
Yes. Yes.
liberally. So, I mean, you've seen all the, you're on mute, I can't hear you, I can't, those
Yes.
kind of things. So yeah, we've all learned some really new tricks.
Oh, wonderful. Nikki, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. I've really had such a fun time. And you're right, we could probably sit and talk for another 2 hours about all of this. But thank you for sharing with us so that everyone can learn a little bit more about how we deal with the world of work. And I am inspired. It seems like EY is just fabulous at putting people at the center, and some very nice ideas you shared with us over there as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's good discussion.
Only a pleasure. Thanks so much. So everyone, yet again, we are spoiled by the quality of coffee companions that we have. Nikki brings with her an enormous amount of background into how we manage people in these work from home situations from COVID and before COVID. And also someone who has such a depth of need herself for interpersonal interaction. So it's not our typical manager who might be more happy to keep things at arm's length. As always, if you've enjoyed this, there's a little button on the page here beneath us. Please will you subscribe and then click on the notification bell so that you know when our next episode is coming out. And then for those of you who have joined us from LinkedIn and from Facebook, it is, as always, lovely to see you here. Please like us or like our post, share, and then contribute by letting us know through your comments what it is that you think and what you'd like to speak about. And then until Tuesday, when I see you for our next perspectives, I hope you have a great week. Goodbye.